Welcome to a new episode of the Straight Wrestling Voices of the Indies podcast. I'm your host Morbo, and with me, as always, everyone's favorite US independent wrestling fan, Sebastian.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Straight Wrestling Voices of the Indies. As always, thank you for the introduction, Morbo. And on this week's episode, we have a special guest because we here on Straight Wrestling Voices of the Indies always try to get different perspectives, always try to get different people working within wrestling. And for the first time, we have a wrestling photographer as our guest. She's known for her work in promotions like TWE, in promotions like New South or Spartan, under the name Suplex Photography, and we are very happy to have her as our guest today. And with that, I want to say welcome, Stephanie Robin.
Thank you. It's very nice to be here. I appreciate you all having me.
Oh, Stephanie, for the people who don't know who you are, who is Stephanie Robin?
Well, I'm a single mom of a child who is training to be a professional wrestler. He goes by the student Cullen. He just earned his green belt under Sensei Aaron Wade. And Wade actually in Alabama is my trainer for all intensive purposes. In Alabama, you have to be licensed under the Alabama Athletic Commission to actually be behind a barricade. And so I became licensed a couple months ago when I got more involved in photography and realized I wanted to expand it more in Alabama, which is more so my backyard of independent wrestling. And it's because of Cullen that I got into it. So it's been great so far. I started in May officially with a photography I started taking classes online and just sort of self-taught. And then I use mentors like Summer from TWE. She's one of our photographers there. And Kylie, who is the girlfriend of Damon Stryker. So I've been asking questions and had really great mentors and guidance so far. So beyond that, I am a salesperson in the insurance world. I've been doing mortgage insurance for the last 15 years of my 25-year career in the mortgage business. And wrestling photography has just really become a hobby for me. And so the reason I got into it was really because of my son and his training and his love of wrestling.
You're active under the name Suplex Photography. Can you tell us something about the name? Is there a story behind it and who came up with it?
I came up with it. I wanted a name that was obviously wrestling fitting. I think the suplex itself as a move, as a wrestling move, it's fantastic. I love watching, especially younger talent, learn the business, and certainly it's not an easy move by any feat for any of them. And I really just, as a fan, as a wrestling fan myself, who started watching wrestling at a young age, it was just always a move that kind of resonated with me and something that I can appreciate about the wrestling talent, that it's something that they can, there's an art to everything they do. And so just again, as a fan, and then I wanted my page to sort of like resonate with anybody in the wrestling community. And so I felt like putting a move behind the name might actually, give it more flavor. And it certainly has.
Did you have any kind of training or preparation before you became a wrestling photographer?
No. Funny story, when Cullen started training, I was going to all of these shows and I started taking pictures with my cell phone, and the cell phone clarity, even though cell phones have come a long way, don't get me wrong, they're great for what they are. The photography side of it was, you needed an editing tool to make the pictures more crisp. And I talked to myself into buying a camera. And like I said, in May of 2025, I purchased my first camera. It's a Canon. And since then, I've taken my own classes. I belong to a ton of photography groups, and just again, leaning on people that do it that I'm around. Again, Summer has probably been my biggest inspiration and my biggest mentor in the business.
How do you train the positioning as a wrestling photographer to be at the right place at the right time, and also not to stand in the way or put yourself in danger of getting hit? Is there a certain kind of strategy behind it, or is it more like you're learning by doing approach?
A lot of it is anticipation. And so studying the wrestlers as well. With being at TWE now we've been there over 2 years. It's a very easy to learn the style of the wrestler and know some of their move sets, like to know when they're going to be and sort of it is positioning, but it's also anticipation. So it's anticipating what's coming next and then not knowing what corner to be. And then also you don't want to be on hard cam. You want to make sure you're standing out of the way. And then of course you have somebody with a moving camera. So all things that you have to be very aware of. So being very aware of your surroundings. Funny story recently, someone did a suicide dive and I walked back into the pole at TWE and hurt my back. So things do happen where, you have to be careful. And of course, again, it's all about watching the surroundings and, making sure that you're out of the way of really everybody.
You already mentioned some names, but are there people in general that you would see as a role models, as a wrestling photographer, or maybe within wrestling in general?
Well, I am biased. So my favorite wrestlers, so I've certainly favorite wrestlers that I take photos of, and of course Cullen being my inspiration, my son. Um, Outside of that, Jaden Newman at TWE is always going to be my top favorite star. And when I think of the Indies as a whole, Sean Christopher and his wife Ravenna Vane are also favorites. They wrestle. Ravenna's become one of our roster team members over at TWE, and Sean also has had the opportunity to wrestle there a few times, and both of them are on the New South roster. So I enjoy photographing them, and they're just great people as a whole. And then outside of them, I would say Jamison Shook, of course, he's just such a top tier talent and only so young in the business. He's just got such a bright future ahead. So I love watching their growth in the business and can't wait to see where they go next. So I would say like those are my motivators, of course. And then of course, Cullen Sensei Aaron Wade has become literally like a son to me. Just a great talent in the business. His style is very unique. Always love watching him in the ring, especially with that Taekwondo background.
When we talk about you becoming a wrestling photographer, we definitely have to talk about TWE. You already did. Can you explain to our listeners how you first got into contact with the TWE?
So our very first invite to TWE was from Jameson, actually. We had seen Jameson at New South, and then he was also at Retinal Wrestling, and he and Cullen had forged a bond. And it was someone that Cullen really looked up to in the business before Cullen ever got really started or interested in training himself. And Jameson invited us to TWE to a show. And our first show was amazing. We really just enjoyed the atmosphere, and you could tell that it was just a very family atmosphere. All the talent are actually very close with the fans, and fans close with the talent. So it was just like a really mutual relationship between them. And it was just a very welcoming place. I mean, TWE is very family, it's a family business, really. And so that's kind of what opened the door for us to start going as fans. And then we met Dylan Hales actually and talked to Dylan about Cullen training. And then he had a conversation with Jaden, and the TWE Combine had become a training place for Cullen as of May of 2024. So he's been doing it this coming year, will be 2 years in training there.
You talked about the first show that you attended, but do you also remember the first show where you took pictures as like an official wrestling photographer?
Yes, that would have been probably June of 2025 with Summer's help. I remember my first set of photos, they were terrible. They were very dark. And Summer literally just, very constructive feedback. And she's always just been very, again, welcoming. There's never been any, concern as far as like she's, let me kind of stand ringside when I was comfortable. And I'll be honest, the very first time I took those photos, I was not comfortable standing ringside because it's kind of overwhelming. Again, just making sure that awareness side of things, you don't want to be in someone's way. You don't want to take away from what someone else is doing. And you want to make sure that you have, that mutual respect for the other photographers, the folks that are recording the show, especially we do live shows sometimes at TWE. So I got to make sure again that I'm standing outside of everyone's way. And then of course the talent themselves, there's things that happen outside that ring with people diving and things like that. So, you know, it's very intimidating. It takes a while. It probably took me about 3 months to be very comfortable standing outside the ring.
Did you start taking the pictures and established suplex photography afterwards, or did you already have the idea for suplex photography in your head when you started?
I started taking the pictures, and through the time, I would say like the first couple weeks, through that time, I kept telling Cullen, I was like, I need to come up with how I'm going to deliver these photos. Summer actually does hers through her website. So I talked to her about that. And I was like, you know what? I want to grow in this community in some aspect and make sure everyone, including fans, can see what they're missing by not going to wrestling shows. So I chose to put them on Facebook as my platform. I'm still kind of now thinking about creating a website just to have it so that wrestlers have the ability to go grab their own photos. For anyone that's not following me on Facebook, they, again, not everybody has social media, even though you would think so in this day and age. But I'd rather, again, have a platform where others can see it, including fans, so they see again what they're missing in the wrestling community. But also, I want to give people in like the talent side of it, their own opportunity to go find their photos and take what they want instead of having to post like a whole match, for example, because I tend to post the entire match in my Facebook group.
You are present at pretty much every Crash Course show, which always takes place every 2 weeks on Monday in the TWE arena. Given that this is like the academy show of TWE, would you say that Crash Course also helped you as a photographer to grow and establish yourself, especially considering your work that you do on the TWE main shows now?
Yes, 100%. I think anybody who has an opportunity from any talent, I don't care if you're a wrestler who's up and coming or if you are somebody that wants to learn, the production side of it or commentary or anything like that. I think TWE is a great opportunity to give young up and coming talent in any aspect who wants to be involved in the business the ability to step in there and get what is called in the business a rep. And so for me, it's opened up doors to give me a rep on every show. And I don't know, Sebastian, if you're aware, but I actually run the door now at TWE. And so I help with, that, obviously taking payments and things like that and prepaids before show, and doing the ticket side of it. But after doors open, I step away from that and I go to the ringside and start taking my photos. And again, I think Crash Course has probably been the biggest opportunity for me because of the fact that it's run so frequently. And it's a show where you can, for me, grow as a photographer and, sort of maneuver around the ring a little bit more. And this does present opportunities for me to not only grow, but to obviously ask questions. When Summer's there, it's opportunity for us to sit and be able to chat and look at photos together and things like that. More opportunity for me to pick her brain on a Monday night versus, obviously a main show.
Speaking of getting reps and also speaking of academy shows, you also work at the academy showdown shows from Spartan Wrestling. And first of all, what can you tell us about your experiences with Spartan Wrestling and with these academy shows?
So the Academy show is run very similar to what we do at Crash Course. It's an opportunity for up and coming talent that's either training at Spartan or other wrestling, on the indies, to come. And we've had, I think Slade Porter has been there. They've had some, bigger names in the business that have come to work there. Teriyaki has been there and Jazzy Yang. Again, these are people that have come that are well known in the business to work and help the upcoming talent by giving them, the opportunity to wrestle a vet in the business. But it's also a platform for, like I said, a lot of the trainees that are under the Spartan umbrella to, get that rep in. Um, I will say Spartan is sponsored by House of Evans. They're a tattoo and piercing shop in Glencoe, Alabama. And the owner, his name is Josh Evans. He's been very welcoming and, allowing me to literally have the entire ring. So I can walk around the entire ring there. And the way that they're set up is it's actually in an old movie theater at the Gadsden Mall in Alabama. And so they've got a cam, but it's up in the like movie side of things, like where you would see like a movie projector. And then they also have some of their shows. They've got people that work there that, of course, they are filming matches. but most of their shows on their Saturdays are the ones that are filming for I believe they have like a page. I think it's under Spartan.com. I'm not sure. To be honest, I'm not sure their website. But yeah, it's been a great opportunity. Again, it's just another opportunity to get a rep in, and they've been very welcoming, uh, very considerate. They've allowed Cullen to take on a couple opportunities there as a manager to, help kind of hone in on his craft a little bit and strengthen his skills as a manager. And yeah, it's been great. They've been wonderful.
How would you say is Spartan Pro Wrestling different or similar compared to TWE in general, and how different are the Academy Showdown shows compared to the Crash Course shows?
Um, I would say they're pretty similar. I will say Spartan has more matches at their academy shows, just because there are so many people that are training there. And TWE, I think we do like anywhere from like maybe 6 to 7 matches. Spartan tends to run to be like 8 to 9 typically. So I would say the length of the show is a little bit longer. And we do have an intermission at the Academy Showdown versus TWE. We typically run through on a Monday, like the entire show, without an intermission. So it's a little bit, I would say TWE is a little bit faster, I think, in our approach, getting through the matches and, sending everyone home since it's during the week. And then again, Spartan has more matches, so the show is a little bit more lengthy. And then the talent, again, these are people, I would say TWE is more veterans that are doing the shows. There's still some up and coming talent that does take the opportunity to come to a crash course, people that are learning, but I think Spartan just has more of their own trainees. Again, there's other names that do come in and out of there from time to time, but typically it's a lot of their own trainees that are, younger in the business.
The third promotion that you are active for and that I associate you with is definitely New South Wrestling. What makes the work at New South Wrestling special for you?
New South for me is the very first promotion on the indies that I ever personally attended. My very first show was this coming year will be 4 years ago. It was at the Furniture Factory, location they used to run out in Huntsville, Alabama. And I happened to go there with my cousin one night, just kind of coincidentally. Didn't know wrestling was running there. And it was very neat. I didn't even know independent wrestling existed, I'll be honest with you, because I was a big WWE fan growing up as a kid. And I enjoyed myself. And I remember going home that night talking to Cullen about it. And he was like, Mom, if it's not WWE, I don't care. Don't talk to me about it. He was just so opinionated about WWE and did not understand that the indies even existed. And New South, I think because of that, always had a special place in my heart just because it was my very first show. And then fast forward a year later, I had taken Cullen to his very first New South show. And he really, at first, his body language was showing me that he was not interested in it. And then at the end of the show, seeing how personable the talent is and how approachable they were. Hunter Drake was probably someone, and Tyler Franks, that Cullen looked to initially. Kylie Page and her sister Kenzie with the NWA, of course, as well, were there. And those were the first four that I think kind of drew Cullen in. And he realized, like, hey, these are really great people. They're super talented in what they do. They're personable. They care about their fans. And those were the four that he sort of started to follow. And so we started going consistently to New South shows before we ended up at TWE. And I also took him to Retinal Wrestling a couple of times because, as you know, some of the talent also, was shared with the Retinal roster. I know Hunter and Tyler, the Carnies, all of them were people that, we just started following as wrestling talent. And so where they went, we went, as long as it, was within a reasonable time as far as driving. And then Kylie and Kenzie, being at the NWA, they own KFW Wrestling out in Sevierville, and we started going to a couple of their shows. And just, again, great people. So we started following them, and that's sort of how we mostly got into this. And New South, because of, again, being a special place for both of us, it means a lot to me. They do a show on Wednesdays called the Honky Tonk show. It's in Huntsville, actually right next to the Furniture Factory. at a bar. It's an outdoor show, and they've been running it for a couple months. They do every other Wednesday, very similar to what TWE and Spartan do. It's a great rep show. They have a lot of their veterans and a lot of their roster wrestles on it, but there's also a lot of up and coming talent that's traveling to it from Alabama, Georgia, and of course, Tennessee. And that's been really fun. And so at that one, I'm actually the only photographer that's there. And I don't shoot every show that they run on a Saturday. It's sort of like sporadic if we're able to go to the show because we don't have, a conflict with TWE as far as scheduling. Then I'm certainly there. But they do have a photographer at New South. That's their primary photographer. So if I am there, it's more like I'll take a couple pictures here and there. It's not anything that's really consistent, to be honest.
Someone who's been active at pretty much all those promotions you've just mentioned, and someone who we also had on the podcast before is Big Booty Judy, also known as Judy Lee Taylor. How would you describe your relationship with her and maybe also other people that you became friends with because of wrestling?
Yeah, I met Judy actually initially at Spartan. She was there, and then she was also at Rocket City Wrestling. And so I've met her at both of those promotions. Judy is just a really great person overall, but she's super talented and love what she's doing in the ring. And every time I see her, she's always very pleasant. She's always very warm and welcoming. And, she definitely extends her gratitude for a fan just showing up and, admiring and appreciating what she's doing. And I think that's for every talent in this business. They do what they do, but in anything that you're doing, you need an audience. Sort of if you're, in your music business, you need an audience to make music for. And similar to wrestling, it's the same, concept. You need fans in the crowd. You need people to cheer you. You need people to boo you equally. And even in photography, I sometimes put my camera down and I'm sitting ringside and I'll stop what I'm doing to get a chant going. Or if there's one of my favorite wrestlers is entering the ring, coming through that curtain, I'm just a fan underneath it all. And so I'm cheering for them or, getting a chant going. Like I said, like what they do means a lot to me as a fan. Like I said, I started loving this business as a young kid myself. And then being on the independent side, seeing how personable and how much of an intimate, more relationship you can kind of have, being in those smaller arenas and smaller venues means a lot.
Have there been particular shows or moments, or maybe even some pictures that you took that you like to remember or look back on the most?
So Wade actually, I noticed it yesterday. We were at a Spartan show and Wade and Cullen were booked at it last night. And I looked over at Wade and he was on his phone and he had his lock screen on his iPhone is a crossbody that I took midair at a New South show. And I said, wow, that's my photo. And like, it means a lot when you see the talent use your photos. Um, I mean, it's again because it tells me that I'm learning and they appreciate it. So I wouldn't say there's any one memorable moment. Of course, anytime 4825 comes out, because I love Jaden and Jameson so much, that for me is just an honor to be able to photograph them. And then along those lines, Hunter Drake, because again, he's like a son to me. He's literally like my second child. Anytime he's at a show, I always look forward to, being able to photograph him and just being able to chat with him. But really, I'm pretty biased, to be honest, Sebastian. There's so many people that's in this business, especially in the Southeast. I feel like we are super lucky to be able to have the immense amount of talent that we have here. Even action wrestling, just want to give them a shout out because Matt Griffin, he's doing amazing work. I've been to several of their shows. And again, a lot of that talent that we have at TWE, Matt also utilizes the same talent. Obviously he brings in some others, but I love the fact that there's camaraderie amongst these promotions, and everyone that shares the talent. They all see the work and sort of the blood, sweat, and tears that everyone sort of puts in to hone their craft in this business.
You mentioned TWE again, so I would like to know what can you tell us about the last TWE show where you did photography named Dead Leaves, Dead Dreams on October 8th?
Yeah, that was a really great show. Of course, Jaden is injured right now, so Jaden has not been wrestling, and that was a little bit, it's kind of disappointing when he's not in the show just because I look forward to seeing what he does. He literally he's amazing in the ring. His opponents, everyone that he wrestles, like they literally, I don't know if they realize just how great it is to be in the ring with him. Same with Jameson, same with Wade. Damon Stryker's become someone that I've really looked to really appreciate everything that he's doing in the ring. He's grown so much in the time that we've been coming to TWE. And so every opportunity that I have to sort of step outside of that apron and, stand in that corner and photograph. Damon's entrance, actually, he just changed it recently. He's using a fog machine and these really neat lights, kind of like a lights camera action, like, it's super neat. I don't know if you've seen it on any of the IWTV recordings, but it's amazing. So I'm actually trying to learn how to photograph that entrance. Because again, it's all about being in the right position and making sure, because you're taking action shots and it's dark. So you've got fog machine, you've got bright lights, and then of course you got the subject. So you're trying to figure out how to maneuver around the camera. And I certainly don't want to stand in Summer's way. So that's been interesting for me. That's a new challenge.
After everything we just heard, and as our first guest who's a wrestling photographer, how different or maybe similar is the work as a wrestling photographer to compared to other non-wrestling roles within independent wrestling, like ring announcers, commentators, referees, or managers? And what qualities does a good wrestling photographer need to have?
I don't know how well known they are. I will say like Summer is big on like ICW. Like I feel like she's known as an ICW photographer. So I feel like her name is certainly out there. The same with I don't know I think he goes under Interface, Demarie. He was one of the photographers that before I ever got in this, like, literally over 2 years ago that I met. He happened to be at a retinal show and I've really followed him. I follow his work. I'm not afraid to send a direct message to someone who shot a good, either promo pic or, an action shot and ask questions. There's a guy who's out in Washington State. His name is Wyatt Parrish. I've DM'd with him a couple of times. I love his shots and his style. And I feel like when I mention these names to others in the Southeast, they know them. So they are recognized. Especially the talent seems to recognize the photographers by name. I do think, as far as, that goes, I think there's, again, it's about positioning yourself to be in the right spot, especially with these action shots and, having a good camera that has the ability to shoot sports photography is great because you're taking, sometimes 2 to 3 shots per move, especially if they're flipping or, they're taking a dive. You want to make sure you get it. That's really important. Again, just making sure you're in the right spot at the right time and anticipating those moves. They surprise you. Sometimes you think like what their move set is, and then all of a sudden they're working a different opponent than you're used to seeing them working. And you're like, okay, well, I wasn't in the right spot. And so there's a lot of opportunities like last night at the show, for example, I missed some opportunities that I was disappointed in because I was in the wrong spot. So being in that position, knowing when to anticipate what's coming next, that's pretty much, really a lot of it. And I don't know that there's really a skill that you have to have in the beginning, like to get into this. Like if it's somebody that says, hey, I want to do this, I think it's just learning the wrestler, learning their style, and then figuring out based on that wrestler and the person that they're working where to be. So again, just doing some tape study and anticipating, your position as a photographer. And then again, outside of that, making sure you're not in anyone's way from the talent to other photographers to people that are filming the show, things like that.
My last question before Morbo will talk to you about what's next for you. Would you say that being the mother of Khan, you already mentioned it, who was a TWE trainee and he was a part of the Dragon Kai dojo, that this also helps you with your photography because you have been at training sessions and know how wrestlers move or even think during a match?
Yes, 100%. It's funny because as a fan, when you put that fan hat on, you're looking at it through the lens of a fan, you don't really understand, I don't think fully as a fan what goes into this until you've watched training or you've watched like I bought Cullen a trampoline last year, and it's probably been one of the biggest things for him as far as helping him hone his craft. And because he's got this trampoline, I've seen him grow so much. Plus the patience that Jaden has and Shook. Casey, has been in there. He's been someone that's helped Cullen. Just great talent that Cullen has that's just kind of overseeing what he's doing. And I'm super excited to see his future and where he goes. But I do think, again, as a fan, you don't have the same sort of look at things that you do when you're kind of behind the scenes. And I think it made me appreciate it that much more. And it's definitely helped my photography to be able to understand it.
Are there other promotions in your home region that you would like to be active for as a wrestling photographer? And is your goal for the future to be also active in promotions outside of your home region?
Yes. So there's always opportunities. I think, just in the Southeast as a whole, we are so, like I said, we're lucky and we're blessed that we have so much good wrestling around us. There are others in Georgia that I would love to just take the opportunity, even if it's just one time. Classic City Wrestling, Wade's affiliated. That's one of the promotions that he's on the roster for. And then also NGW, he is also on that one. And Cullen and I may go and explore those opportunities. I mean, I would love to just be able to shoot a match. I don't even have to shoot the whole show. Just an opportunity to just see other talent and people that I've never had the opportunity to shoot for. I think that's exciting. And then outside of here, I think when you think about big promotions beyond wrestling, of course, is probably one of the biggest in the indies. CZW is another one that, is well known. That would be a fun opportunity. And like I said, I don't have to shoot the whole show. I'd be happy to just shoot a match. Those are definitely, on my radar. Maybe the next, I don't know, if I had to think about a 3 to 5 year plan, that would definitely be on my radar for that.
Could you imagine doing other things within wrestling besides photography, like ring announcing, managing, or maybe even commentary?
No. So funny thing, because of Alabama, you have to be licensed. I actually was in a Spartan Arena show a couple weeks ago. They had a 3-day food truck festival, and they did 3 days of wrestling with the festival because, like I mentioned, their building is at the mall, and we had I think it was a battle royal, and they kind of tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, do you want to be in it?" And I was like, "Are you serious?" And I think I've watched enough of it that I, maybe could do something dangerously, but not very safely. I'll be honest. I won that battle royal, so I did. I was there was one person standing. His wrestling name is Birdseed. And I got in the ring. I hit him literally with an Irish whip, and I threw him out of the ring, and I was the last person standing, and I won that. So that was probably a one and done opportunity for me. And it was fun, to be part of. But yeah, that was the only time, and I definitely don't ever aspire to do anything else other than the photography and helping run the door at TWE. It's been an honor. Like I mentioned, TWE is a big family, and they've literally become our second family. So that will always be my number one promotion that I will always be part of.
On December the 27th, there will be a very special TWE show with the All Women's Showcase. What will it mean for you that such a show will happen at your home promotion?
The phenomenon, if I'm saying it correctly, yes, to be an all women show. I'm super excited as a woman, especially. I watch women wrestling and watch the wrestlers as women, a lot of intergender matches, as you guys know, on the indies. And I love that these women can go toe to toe with these men. And it's amazing. I know some of the talent that's already been announced. And I know some of the additional talent that still hasn't been announced. And I think it's going to be a really exciting show. And as a woman photographer, to be at that show, it's just going to mean everything to me. I just think, women in general, oftentimes are overlooked. And I love that wrestling is for everyone, and it gives everyone a platform to be equally seen and equally appreciated. And they have the same opportunities as far as training. And, this show is going to be amazing. I hope it's something that we do on an annual basis. Like, this is not just a one-time thing, but I'm not sure.
Are there any upcoming shows from TWE, Newsoft, or Spartan Wrestling that you were part of?
Yes. So I actually got my first paid opportunity. It's with Rocket City on December 6th. So all of my photography up until this point has been free because I'm learning. But they reached out to me and asked if I would shoot a match or if I would shoot their whole show, and they offered to pay me. So I'm going to take that opportunity. That's December 6th. And then, of course, TWE, we have Fool's Holiday coming up on the 12th. It's a special Friday show in December. And then, of course, we have our December 27th All Ladies show, which I'm looking forward to. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this weekend, we have our 22nd show coming up. And that's the Turkey Bowl. It's going to be really interesting. I'm excited for this one. And Cullen is actually managing the team with Kenzie Page, and of course Wade is on that team. It's going to be really exciting. So I'm excited to see that because that's going to be an interesting match. And then of course, coming into 2026, I know there's some big opportunities on the horizon that I will definitely tell everyone to stay tuned and watch. Make sure people are following us on social media, especially TWE, just because you never know what's going to happen there. It's just really exciting. You never know who's going to come in and out of there. We've got a ton of great booking. I can't say enough about the promotion. Like that is 100% our home promotion.
Yes, Stephanie, that's it. We're at the end at the interview, and as always, the stage is yours. You can plug and promote anything you want.
Thank you. Well, if you're a fan that follows straight wrestling, I would definitely say, you guys are great. I appreciate everything you do. I know you've had Cullen on in the past. So thank you. And I've listened to several of your interviews. You guys do amazing work. And Sebastian, of course, you're one of my favorite people. And that's really all. My plug is always going to be follow TWE on the social medias for X. We have a Facebook page. We have an Instagram. Of course, that's again, home promotion, always going to be the one that I'm, going to stand behind, especially that's Cullen's turf that he's training at, and they've been amazing with him. And then, if you have IWTV, there's a ton of great promotions on there, like New South. I mentioned Spartan Wrestling. I believe they have a website, and I think that's where they air their Saturday shows. And then I think they also have a YouTube page, and sometimes they stream live on Facebook.
Thank you very much for coming on the show, Stephanie. I think it was a very, very cool interview because it was a very insightful look in maybe one of the jobs at a wrestling show that's not common for everyone or not known for everyone. Most people know the wrestlers, etc., but the photographer, not so much. So that was very cool. I really liked the show. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on, and it's great to chat with you guys. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much to you, Morbo, and especially thank you very much to you, Stephanie, for taking the time. Like Morbo said, it was a very insightful look. And it's great to have that perspective on this podcast as well. And with that, I would like to say thank you to all our listeners, and I hope you will listen to us in the future again. Goodbye.